Years ago, my cousin, Lucy, and I had a strained relationship because she let her son, Damian, do anything he wanted, never punished him, and brushed away anything he ever did as boys will be boys or he's just a kid etc. It came to a breaking point between us when Lucy and Damian were visiting years ago. Damian was 12 at the time, and my daughter, Maggie, was 9. Maggie was sitting happily playing her Xbox in her bedroom upstairs. While Lucy and I were talking, Damian got bored and wandered off. A few minutes later and I hear screaming and crying. I rush up to Maggie's room to find her on the floor, blood all over her face, while Damian is just casually playing this box. It turns out he came up and demanded a turn on this box. Maggie said sure, just let me finish the level. So he snatched the controller from her hand and smashed her around the face with it, then shoved her out of the way. I rushed her to the hospital. Luckily it looked worse than it was, and there was no lasting damage, and I live in the UK so no medical bills. But I was furious. I told Lucy what Damian did, and she shrugged and said you know how boys are with their video games, she should have just let him play. I told her in no uncertain terms that she and her son were not allowed anywhere near me or my family. We got into a huge fight over this, where she of course tried to absolve her little angel of anything. So I lost it and told her if she didn't discipline him and teach him boundaries, she would end up raising a monster who would grow up to be a thug or worse, which infuriated her. This caused fallout with the family for years, largely because Lucy lied and told everyone her son and Maggie had just been playing fighting, and that's how she got hurt, it was just an accident, and I was overreacting. After a few years, everyone forgot. I still forbade Lucy or her husband from coming anywhere near me. Several other family members did the same. I can't imagine why. Fast forward to a little before the pandemic. Damian was 19. Just like I predicted, he soon learned that thanks to his mother, he was bulletproof as she would never believe he did anything wrong. So his behavior got worse and worse, to the point where he was kicked out of every school in the area and had to go to a special school. I got a call from Frank, Lucy's brother, telling me Lucy had been rushed to hospital, that he knows we don't talk, but Lucy was seriously hurt and he wanted to let me know. Despite our history, I went to visit Lucy, accompanied by Frank and his wife. Before this, we had been really close, and I was upset to hear she was hurt. When I got there, I was shocked by what I saw. She was really banged up, her face swollen, and bruises all up her arms. It turned out Damian had done this. She was really struggling for money, and he refused to get a job, so she finally tried to lay down the law and tell him to get a job or she was throwing him out, so he attacked her. Almost dislocated her jaw. It was horrific. Now, we had a history, but at this point, none of that mattered. I was worried and sad for her. I immediately asked her if she needed help with anything. She seemed surprised, but we ended up all having a really heartwarming chat, with her saying how much it meant to her that I came to see her. I thought maybe we were turning a corner and could repair our relationship. We had been really close as kids. Oh, how wrong I was. A few weeks later, I started getting blasted on social media and getting nasty messages and texts telling me what an awful person I was and how could I do what I did to Lucy. I was confused. I hadn't done anything. I called Frank. He had no idea either, but said he would look into it. Turns out Lucy had told everyone I had come to the hospital and mocked her, gloating I told you so. While she bawled her eyes out. I confronted Lucy about it, asking her how she could lie like that. She hit back that this was all my fault, it's what I deserved. If I knew this was going to happen, why didn't I do more to help her? She then demanded I pay her at least $10,000 for damages I caused. Like what the hell? She lied to everyone because she couldn't stand that I had been right and decided to punish me for it. For months I endured hateful messages from family members who believed her lies. Not all of my family believed her, of course, and Frank and his wife cleared things up about what really happened. He managed to record Lucy admitting that she lied, which got most off my back, but there were still a few relatives who had it in their heads that there's no smoke without fire, and I must have done something to make her say what she did. But they're all distant relatives on her side, so who cares? Then the pandemic rolled around. Everyone forgot the petty squabbles Lucy and her lies caused. But, last month, we held a family gathering at my parents', the first in years due to the pandemic. Lucy showed up. Thankfully Damian was absent on account of serving a prison sentence for aggravated assault and battery, unrelated to what he did to his mother. I went to ask Lucy how she was doing. The first words out of her mouth were, "You need to pay me what you owe me. If you don't, I'm taking you to court. I need that money, it's the least you can do for ruining my life." She followed me around the party demanding I pay her, telling everyone who would listen that I had ruined her life. What a happy family reunion. If I were OP, I would have confronted her in front of everyone and reminded her what kind of a parent she was. That's why Damian ended the way he did. She ruined her and her son's life by not being a good parent. OP. Oh, everyone knows. Nobody agreed with her. They either tried to change the subject, walked away, or told her they thought she was wrong. Which is why she started following me around demanding money until my mum had enough and told her to leave. That is good to know. I think she could stand a good old-fashioned shunning. This has its place despite some people's protestations. One of these days she will come and drag Mr. D along, and what then? Just be prepared. OP. There have been family discussions about what to do, especially if Damian shows up. Luckily one of my uncles is a retired police officer and has contacts he can call and knows the process, so we know where to call and what to do if Damian or Lucy show up. Wait, so she doesn't parent her child and it's your fault as you didn't force her to? Dang. My mother called me selfish for wanting to be an organ donor and cremated when I die. My mother said this years ago. My brother passed away suddenly from cancer in 2019, 27 hours after being diagnosed. He was 37. It tore our family apart from the grief. It has caused us to make up our living wills and how we like to be buried. I was close to my brother, so he told me what he wanted if he died 4 years before he did. I planned his funeral and everything. My mother trusted me and was pleased with how I planned it. The day after his funeral, we were talking about how we wanted our bodies to be handled after death. I told her I wanted to donate my organs and whatever is left, I wanted to be cremated and most of my ashes scattered. If the family wanted to keep some, they can. My mother asked how else will she visit my grave. I told her I don't want a grave and again said they can have some of my ashes and plan a funeral if they like. I don't know if I get a funeral or not, personally. Then she told me it's a sin to not have your body intact when going into heaven. When I reminded her I am a non-believer, she started calling me selfish for putting a burden on her by making her think I'm going to hell for my body not being intact, and an atheist started calling me selfish for not having a grave for her and family to visit and selfish for not letting family keep all my ashes. When I told her my body, my choice, my mother started to cry and she said, "Well, if you die before me, I'll make sure you have a grave. I don't care what you want. How could you be so self-absorbed?" I felt bad and apologized. She said, "Think about someone else for once. You know how selfish it is to want to pollute the environment with human remains?" "Yeah, I know now," I said nothing wrong, but at the time, I felt like the idiot for not letting my family visit my grave, so that's why I apologized. Since then, I wrote a living will because I can't trust my mother to handle my wishes. Recently, when the conversation steered to death and burial, I again repeated my wishes. My mother said, "No, you're not. I'm not going to live the rest of my life thinking my daughter is in hell. I'll plan everything for you." Okay, Mom. If you haven't already made specific plans with a funeral home or other service for your body after you die, do so ASAP and make sure several people you trust have copies and know who to contact to take care of it. One of my family members was in critical care recently, and I overheard my uncle telling his wife that while he is unconscious, she should use the opportunity to get a priest in there to perform last rites against his will. Knowing my mom would likely support such an action as well, I've been making plans to set up a living will for myself, with specific instructions that anyone who tries to break it while I'm incapacitated should be removed from the premises by security or police if need be. Lol, so donating your organs after you are dead and no longer need them to people who may have a chance at life is now what is being selfish? Good to know.